Okay, so the title is Waiting on God. We're going to learn about waiting. Often time moves faster than we want, and often time moves slower than we want, but the time's moving the same. It's our perception. But waiting on God, we're going to look at Isaiah chapter 40, verse 31. It says, "But they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint." Wait means, right here, it means to bind together by twisting. So wait is actually a verb. It's an action word. It's something you do. However, we're still waiting for this answered prayer, for this manifestation. We feel like we've obeyed God to do what He told us to do. We've made the major changes, and we still feel like the promise isn't here yet. So while we're waiting, what we need to do is bind ourselves together with the Lord. We're going to look at ways that we can do that. Waiting can be dull, yet dreamy. It's dull because you're waiting. So we're going to find ways to avoid the dullness. It can be dreamy because you're hopeful for this manifestation. So we're going to have to use patient endurance. We're going to have to use hope. But to avoid the dullness, and also at the same time to bind ourselves together by twisting, we're going to look at these topics. We're going to look at being refreshed, stir yourself up, look at remember, encourage yourself, be led, then follow. Then we're probably going to mention a little bit about the tree of life. We're going to try to figure out how that ties in here somehow. So the first thing, be refreshed. Acts chapter 3, verse 19. Remember, these are a list of ways to bind yourself together by twisting, uniting with the Lord, and they also reduce the dullness so that your time of waiting is not just dull and empty and boring.
Can you tell me where to look again?
Acts 3:19. Says, "Repent you therefore and be converted, that your sins may be blotted out, when the times of refreshing shall come from the presence of the Lord." Refreshing, if you notice, it comes from the presence of the Lord. So how do we get refreshed? We go into His presence. When we enter into His presence, while we're waiting, we're binding together, and we're not dull. We're not bored, because we're in His presence. When you go into His presence and you worship and adore Him, you're refreshed while waiting.
If you stay in the presence of the Lord.
Yes. But the refreshing comes from the presence. You have to go to His presence. I want to read this from the Passion Translation. It's Proverbs 3:7-8. It says, "Wisdom comes when you adore Him with undivided devotion and avoid everything that's wrong. Then you will find the healing refreshment your body and soul long for." So undivided attention, and put out everything that's wrong, all the negative reports, all the bad reports. Put those out of your head. Undivided attention on God, and you will find the healing refreshment that your body and soul long for. We're going to break down the word refreshed. It's a Greek word, I guess it's pronounced anapsycho. That's how it looks like it's pronounced. It means the recovery of breath. It also means to relieve or to revive. These are two Greek words put together to make up the one word. Ana, which the definition means again, to repeat, to have repetition. And the last part, psycho, means to breathe gently. So again, go into his presence and God breathes the breath of life onto your soul, but it's in his presence. He breathes his breath of life onto your soul. There is refreshment in your soul. Any comments on being refreshed?
Aren't we blessed to be able to control our thoughts
Yes.
so we can choose to focus on him
Yes.
and be in his presence?
Yes. Be refreshed, relieved, revived. Okay.
That's a good feeling.
Yes. Okay, the next topic is to stir yourself up. Going to look at 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 6.
Chapter again, please.
Chapter 1, verse 6.
Thank you.
It says, wherefore I put thee in remembrance that thou stir up the gift of God, which is in thee by the putting on of my hands. That word stir up, we're going to break that word down also. It means to rekindle. It's the word anazopyro. But that is three Greek words that's been put together to make up this one word meaning to rekindle. It's telling you, Anna is do it again. Do what you've done before. The first part, when you came to your first love and this first passion. The word Zoe, that's meaning God's kind of life. And the last part, pyrio, is fire. So to me, to sum it up, it's come again to your first love, to your true passion, to know God, to pursue God, to live that life that's pleasing to God. That's how you're going to stir yourself up. It says in Revelation, I have somewhat against thee because thou hast left thy first love. So what do? You come again to your first love. That rekindles it. Your first love was grace and faith combined to know Jesus. It wasn't your works. It wasn't all these other things. But to stir yourself up, you come again to Jesus, to his presence. Same thing. That will stir yourself up while you're waiting. There will be no dullness, and you'll be binding yourself together with the Lord.
Instead of being complacent and just doing nothing, it's like the coals of a fire. You got to stir it up and rekindle it.
Yes.
Get that fire started again.
Yeah, because I thought of when you first meet your spouse or somebody, there's a fire kind of, it's a passion, it's a love that you're eager for. And over time, that thing that we have with the Lord tends to go out. So what do? We do what we first done to fall in love with him, which was come to his presence, listen to his word, get to know him, spend time with him.
Which opens us up to allow him to work in us.
Yes.
And we don't take him for what's the,
For granted.
yes,
Yes.
thank you.
Yes.
We don't.
Yes. Okay, the next topic is, while you're waiting, you need to remember. That means to recollect and rehearse what has been done for you by the Lord. Still in 2 Timothy 1:6, he said, wherefore I put thee in remembrance that thou stir up the gift. In the Old Testament, it talked about God remembered Noah. There's places where it said God remembered his covenant that he made. There, it means to recognize. So when you remember something, you recognize. You need to fix the mind to get a mental grasp. The same one in Revelation says, nevertheless I have somewhat against thee, because thou hast left thy first love. Remember therefore from whence thou art fallen.
And that's Revelation and what?
2, 3, and 4. Remember that relationship you once had. Remember what he done for you. Remember the gift of salvation, and then go back to that, which is basically, don't try to earn it, don't try to strive for it, don't try to make it happen, just relax. And we're going to read Lamentations. It's after Jeremiah, Isaiah, Jeremiah, and then Lamentations. Chapter 3, verse 19 through 26.
I can always remember the words, but I cannot remember the numbers.
Chapter 3, verse 19 through 26.
Thank you.
It's a short, small book after Jeremiah.
Before Ezekiel.
Verse 19 through 26. He was talking, he said, remembering my affliction and my misery, the wormwood and the gall, my soul hath them still in remembrance, and is humbled in me. This I recall to my mind, therefore have I hope. So right now he's remembering some tragic things he went through, but he says, I'm going to recall this to my mind. I'm going to recognize and remember. Verse 22, it is of the Lord's mercies that we are not consumed, because his compassions fail not. They are new every morning. Great is thy faithfulness. The Lord is my portion, says my soul. Therefore will I hope in him. The Lord is good unto them that wait for him, to the soul that seeketh him. It is good that a man should both hope and quietly wait for the salvation of the Lord. And there again, that word wait is to bind yourself together by twisting. So he knows what happened in his past, but he says, therefore, I'm going to meditate on the things of God, on his mercies. He says, I'm going to wait, I'm going to bind myself together with him. In the Message, it says, God proves to be good to the man who passionately waits, to the woman who diligently seeks. It is a good thing to quietly hope for help from God. So there we see he remembered while he was waiting. Anything about the word remember?
How blessed we are to be able to do that.
Yeah. We can recall it to our mind and then fix our mind. Colossians says, I don't know where it is, but it says to set your mind on things above and keep it set. So that's what we have to do. The next thing,
We remember things that not only that we've gone through and suffered, the trials and tribulations, we go back and remember how God has delivered us and brought us through these things. And if he brought me through these problems before of not having a job or being down in a mental or emotional state, he brought me through it before, he can bring me through it again.
yep,
And we remember the promises that he's given us, that he will do these things.
yes.
And we thank him for all the good things that he's done. And yeah, we remember. Yeah.
Bring it back to mind.
Yeah.
You might have to stop and think about it for a minute, meditate, but you can find it and bring it back to mind. And the next topic is to encourage yourself. 1 Samuel chapter 30, verse 6.
Oh, I'm in 30 and 6.
Yes.
Thank you.
David was going through a bad ordeal right here, and it says in verse 6 that David was greatly distressed. Even his people spoke of stoning him, because the soul of all the people was grieved, every man for his sons and for his daughters. But David encouraged himself in the Lord his God. That means to fasten upon. It also uses the words courage, strength, help, repair, and bind. To bind together, as in weight. It uses the word bind. But
Say that again.
the word encouraged,
Encourage.
yeah,
Okay.
it means to fasten upon. And it also used a lot of words, such as courage, strength, help, repair, and bind. But he had to do this himself. I've never been in the place where I had no one at my side to help me or encourage me a little bit, give me a little boost. But his own people were ready to stone him. That would be like you guys ready to stone me, you know. I've never been there. But I have been in places where I've had to encourage myself in the Lord.
Sometimes people can't really do anything, or not only just coming against you maybe, but sometimes, you know, people just can't, they haven't experienced it or been through it, so they can't bring it out to word help. And you just have to, hey, we're two or more gathered, I'm one, Jesus the other, and you just go with God and get your strength and encourage yourself through Him.
Yep. God wants us to rely on Him, on the strength within us to muster up enough of this encouragement that I can keep going, I can make it through another day, instead of relying on somebody else to give us that boost.
Yeah. To the mind of Christ.
The next topic is to be led and then follow. All of us want to be led by God. We want God to lead us. But if He's going to lead us, we have to be willing to obey and to follow that leading. Proverbs chapter 3, verse 6.
What, I'm sorry?
Proverbs chapter 3, verse 6.
3 and 6?
Yes.
3 and what?
3 and 6?
In all thy ways acknowledge Him, and He shall direct thy paths. Direct means He will make right and pleasant and prosperous your path. But it is when you acknowledge Him that He will give you that direction, and then you follow. In the Message, says, trust God from the bottom of your heart. Don't try to figure out everything on your own. Listen for God's voice in everything you do, everywhere you go. He's the one who will keep you on track. Don't assume that you know it all. So He will keep us on the track to make it right, to make it pleasant, to make it prosperous. That's the path we will be on. And we will be led down that path unto the destination of the victory. I thought when God gives us, without direction, we have no vision. Direction actually helps to aid our vision for the future and the mental picture we have. If I say I'm going to go on vacation, but I have no direction on where I'm going, on when I'm going, all it is words. It's just, maybe it will, maybe it won't. But when I begin to put directions, it begins to give me a vision. I'm going to do this while I'm there. I'm going to go to the ocean and I'm going to see the dolphins. But if I have no direction for it, it's just meaningless words. So the direction that He gives is going to aid the vision that we have for our future, and it's going to aid the vision of the mental picture of our identity as well. Everybody getting that?
Yeah. I think 5, 6, 7, and even 8 all goes into this proverb chapter.
And we're gonna look at several verses in Proverbs 11 to go along with it. I'm just gonna skip through several. Proverbs 11:4, the last part, righteousness delivers from death. So when we're led and follow, we'll be following his righteousness. We'll be delivered from the death, which can be calamity, distress. It's not actually always just death. Verse 5, the righteousness of the perfect shall direct his way. It says Christ is made unto us wisdom and righteousness, sanctification and redemption. So the righteousness of me will direct my way. That is God directing my way. Verse 6, the righteousness of the upright shall deliver them. Will be delivered. Verse 8, the righteous is delivered out of trouble. Skip down to verse 18, the last part. But to him that soweth righteousness shall be a sure reward. All these things are, as we're led and follow, we're going to sow righteousness. We're going to receive the reward of walking righteously. Verse 19, as righteousness tendeth to life. And verse 21, the last part. But the seed of the righteous shall be delivered. He's going to lead me into the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. All these things are the result. I'll be delivered from death. I'll receive life. I'll be delivered from trouble. Because that's where he's going to lead me to. It's a prosperous, pleasant, right path. Any thoughts on that?
Hey, what he did, we have been made righteous. We
Yes.
have been made righteous and holy.
Yes.
And if we stay in tune, stay connected with the Spirit, that righteousness produces health.
Yes.
It produces prosperity. It produces the happiness, the joy, the fruit of the Spirit. It produces all those things when we stay with Him and recognize who we are in Christ, that we are righteous, we are holy.
And when we're binding ourselves together with him, we'll be led down that righteous and holy path,
Right.
leading to victory.
Amen.
Okay, while we wait and follow these steps, we'll throw this in here, that we will be partaking of a tree of life. The tree of life was mentioned in Genesis in the beginning and then in Revelation at the conclusion, but that was the tree of life. There's few references that I believe are glimpses and shadows that refer to a tree of life. So it's not the tree of life,
Bless you.
but several places refer to a tree of life, and that could possibly be a type and shadow of the tree of life in Revelation in the conclusion of things. The hidden manna, it must be revealed to us. So the tree of life is made mention of Proverbs 11:30, 15:4, and 13:12, and 3:18.
Read that again, please.
We'll go to 3:18 first. I got Proverbs 3:18, 11:30, 13:12, and 15:4. While we're binding ourselves together with him to avoid the dullness, we're going to be partaking of the tree of life. So 3:18. She is talking about wisdom. She is a tree of life to them that lay hold upon her, and happy is everyone that retaineth her. So he has made unto me wisdom, sanctification, redemption, and he's made unto me wisdom. Wisdom is a tree of life to those that lay hold upon wisdom. My soul will be breathed upon the breath of life. and that will flourish my soul. It will be like a tree planted by the rivers of living water. Then the one in Proverbs 11:30. The fruit of righteousness is a tree of life. We produce fruit by the words that we speak, by our actions, and if we're being led down this righteous path, the fruit of that is going to be a tree of life. It's not the tree of life, but we can partake of a tree of life. The other one is 13:12. Hope deferred maketh the heart sick, but when the desire cometh, it is a tree of life.
That
It
word
is-
desire is defined as
The word what?
desire. Did you look it up?
No. Probably when the answer cometh, it is a tree of life. But hope deferred can make the heart sick. Hope delayed over and over, disappointment over and over can make the heart wonder, have confusion, have doubts, have fears and worries. But when the desire cometh, you're going to partake of a tree of life. Your soul is going to flourish. Your soul is going to be joyful, at peace. Not by walking it out by faith, because we do and should walk in joy by faith at times. But this will be a flourishing. It will be a tree of life to the soul. And 15:4. A wholesome tongue is a tree of life. So all these things let me know that besides the tree of life that's in the beginning and the conclusion, we can actually tap into parts of that tree of life. And the last topic, anybody want to say anything about the tree of life?
Well, the tree of life spoken in Revelation has 12 leaves for the healing of the nations.
Yes.
You have mentioned several leaves, ways of reaching in and touching that tree of life.
Mm-hmm.
And as Jesus in the spirit realm today as a tree, and we're the branches and we produce the fruit through staying into that tree. So that is also, but the words we speak, like that last thing you gave there, the words that we speak, that brings forth fruit. When you profess Christ and you teach the word, it produces fruit, and that fruit is on the tree. We are the branches. He is the tree. So the spiritual and natural tree of life works in conjunction.
Yep.
It's the same thing. Okay.
I think when we're done, you can teach me what you got out of that tree of life.
Okay.
And the last thing I got wrote down is, while we're waiting and binding ourselves together, and we don't want to pass the time of waiting dull and empty and boring, we're going to have to give God control. Plain and simple.
Amen.
Romans 8:28, all things will work together for the good to those who love God and called according to his purpose. So the only way it's going to work for good is to just stop. What is it in your life you're trying to control right now? Just stop. Just let it go. And then just from your heart, be still and say, God, will you take control of this situation for me, because I can't do it. I can't get the result I want. And he will, but he has to be invited, and you have to let it go. So I think that is just to sum it all up. When you're waiting on God, give him control. Bind yourself together with him, and it won't be dull, it won't be dreary. It will be full of life, full of hope, and you can be refreshed. Questions, comments from anybody?
No, those are all good points that we need to take and meditate on. Little sticky notes that you can look at different points, and because if you don't think about these things, you have a tendency to get wrapped up in every day-to-day circumstances and forget. So we need to remember encourage ourselves, stir ourselves up by having a little sticky note. I used to carry a little piece of paper in my hand for memory verses and things. But to look at it and to remind ourselves and keep it in front of our eyes always. Just need to do it more.
Well, I'm doing it because I feel like I'm waiting on the Lord. I feel like I've obeyed, made a major change in what He asked, and need to make some minor adjustments on that major change now. But I feel like I'm waiting on His promise to be fulfilled in my life. We usually, I don't believe, find ourselves waiting on the Lord. Usually I think He's actually waiting on us, whether it's obedience or He's
Yeah,
exercising patience in us. But there are times when I think the Lord may have a set time, and I'm like, I've done all I know to do. I've done my part. I've obeyed. So while I'm waiting, instead of it just being dull, void, and empty, how can I pass this time with joy, with hope? And that's what I came up with, yes.
Well, when you've done all you can do, there's nothing left but to relax and wait and depend on Him
Yes,
and seek His face.
yes. But those were the steps that I came up with for me, and I just thought I'd share it with you all. Because I've not got everything that I've hoped to get from the Lord. I'm still a work in progress along with everybody else. And I found out just because you can teach it, don't mean you're actually living it out. It means you're still in the process of obeying the same word. It just means I can express it in a way that people can grasp the hold of it. But I still have to practice it.
So there is a time. God has already provided for us all that we need, but sometimes there is a time before it comes. God has an appointed time. Paul did what all Paul did in the old Pharisees' scriptures and persecutions, but when it pleased God to call him into there was a time set for Paul to be called into the ministry, and there's a time set that God has for us to do certain things, and that is a resting and patiently waiting upon. But while you're doing that, you got to be wrapped up, twisted up, and tied up in Him to go on and go through. Yeah, it's a different wait.
Yep.
It's a different kind of waiting. Waiting also talks about like serving tables.
Yep.
We wait upon the Lord. We serve Him. But at the same time, maybe it's a set time. Christ couldn't be born or crucified until the set time. He couldn't do it 100 years early or even 10 days early. It had to be on the Passover at a set time. So,
One place a long time ago I studied this, it just came to mind in Psalms 37:7. It says, rest in the Lord and wait patiently for Him. Wait there was actually in the concordance said dance.
dance.
Yeah, so give Him praise.
Celebrate,
Twirl
worship.
before Him. Yeah, worship, adore Him.
Yeah, praise God. That's why words study. That's why you got to study to show yourself approved, to get the full understanding of a word, a simple word of wait.
Yeah.
If we wait and we only look at it through the natural American way of looking at it, we just, well, I don't know, sit back and kick back. I don't have to read, study, pray. I'm just waiting on God.
It's not what it
That's
means.
not what it's all about. So, well, praise God. Thank you, Lord. It's good, girl. It's good.